The alarm shrieked through the command deck as Lieutenant Kayla Brooks sprinted toward the airlock. Behind her, 6 Felixar warriors sat motionless on the steel floor, their sleek black uniforms crumpled beside them like discarded rags. "We have 18 minutes before the Kryl breach the station," Commander Eric Stone shouted from tactical. "Why aren't they suited up?" Kayla skidded to a halt in front of the aliens. Each stood barely 4 feet tall, covered in silver-gray fur with massive amber eyes that tracked her every movement. Their ears twitched nervously. "They won't put on the combat gear," she said, breathless. "Won't or can't?" Eric demanded. The largest Felixar, called Vex in the translation logs, made a low chirping sound. His translator crackled to life. "Assistance required. Protocol demands." "Protocol?" Kayla stared at the uniform in her hands. "You're telling me you need help getting dressed?" Vex's tail swished once. "Affirmative. Cultural necessity. Combat dress is ceremonial. Must be assisted by ranked human. This shows trust. This shows alliance." The station rocked as another Krill missile struck the outer shields. Sparks rained from an overhead panel. 15 minutes, Eric called out. "Their claws are what's keeping those boarding parties from overrunning Deck 9. We need them combat ready." Kayla grabbed Vex's uniform and dropped to one knee. The fabric was strange, almost liquid in texture but reinforced with rigid plating along the chest and shoulders. She found the opening and held it wide. Vex stepped forward, his digitigrade legs bending as he allowed her to guide his arms through the sleeves. The uniform sealed itself with a soft hiss. "Next," Kayla said, moving to the second Felixar. Her hands worked quickly, muscle memory taking over as she dressed each warrior in turn. They stood perfectly still, eyes half closed in what she recognized as their version of contentment. When she fastened the last buckle on the 6th uniform, all 6 Felixar straightened simultaneously. They looked different now, taller somehow. Their ears stood erect and their tails rose high behind them. Vex touched his chest plate where the human Felixar Alliance symbol gleamed. "We stand ready." "Then move," Eric barked. "Deck 9 is about to fall." The Felixar exploded into motion, bounding toward the corridor with impossible speed. Their claws scraped against metal as they vanished around the corner. Kayla stood alone in the airlock bay, her hands still warm from the contact. "That was the strangest thing I've ever seen," Eric said quietly. "Strange wins battles," Kayla replied, grabbing her own weapon. "Let's go make sure they don't fight alone." The Krillazar hit Deck 9 like a silver storm. Kayla arrived 30 seconds behind them and found the corridor transformed into a war zone painted in violet Krill blood. Vex moved like liquid death. His claws extended a full 6 inches, razor edges catching the emergency lights as he tore through a Krill soldier's exoskeleton. The insectoid warrior collapsed in segments. 2 more rushed him from the left but never made contact. Vex twisted mid-air, his enhanced uniform amplifying his natural agility into something beyond physics. "Left flank," Kayla shouted, firing her plasma rifle into a cluster of Krill pushing through a breached bulkhead. The shots burned clean holes through their chitinous armor. The smallest, Felixar, named Tix, leaped onto a Krill commander's back and drove both claws through its neural cluster. The creature's mandibles clicked once before going silent. Tix landed in a crouch, already scanning for the next target. "They're adapting." Eric's voice crackled through Kayla's calm. "Krill are sending heavier units. Scans show battle-class warriors inbound to your position." Kayla's heart hammered. Battle class meant 8 feet of armored nightmare with acid projectors and enough strength to tear through reinforced hull plating. "Copy that," she said. "How long until reinforcements reach us?" 4 minutes. "Can you hold?" The deck shuddered as something massive struck the far wall. Metal screamed as it buckled inward. A massive claw punched through, then another. The wall peeled away like paper. 3 battle-class Krill stepped into the corridor. Their acid sacs pulsed with bioluminescent green. One opened its mandibles and released a sound that vibrated through Kayla's bones. The Felixar didn't retreat. Instead, they formed a defensive line between the Krill and the human evacuation pods behind them. Vex chirped rapidly. His translator struggled to keep pace. "Pattern formation, Delta. Protect the soft ones." Honor demands blood debt repayment. Soft ones? Kayla muttered, then realized he meant the human civilians still trapped in the medical bay. The lead battle class fired its acid spray. Vex dodged left while 2 other Felixar rolled right. The acid ate through the deck plating where they'd been standing. Smoke rose in toxic clouds. Kayla fired 3 bursts into the creature's face. The plasma scored its armor but didn't penetrate. They're too heavily plated. Tix made a decision that defied survival instinct. She sprinted directly at the center Kryl, ducking under its sweeping claw, and drove herself upward into its thorax joint where the armor segmented. Her claws disappeared into soft tissue. The Kryl shrieked and thrashed, trying to dislodge her. Vex and 2 others used the distraction. They converged on the left Kryl from 3 angles simultaneously. Claws found seams, found vulnerabilities. The creature toppled backward, leaking fluid from a dozen wounds. But the 3rd battle class had a clear shot at Kayla. It charged, mandibles wide, acid sac swelling for a killing spray. Kayla's rifle clicked empty. Time seemed to compress. She saw the sac contract, saw the green liquid begin its arc toward her face. Then Vex was there, his uniform's chest plate catching the acid full force. The material held for exactly 2 seconds before beginning to dissolve. Vex screamed, a sound no translator could render, but his claws were already in motion. They punched through the Kryl's thorax and found its central ganglion. The creature died standing up. Vex collapsed. Smoke rose from his chest where the acid had eaten through both uniform and fur. The skin beneath was raw and bleeding. Medic. Kayla dropped beside him, her hands hovering uselessly over the wound. I need a medic on deck 9. Vex's eyes found hers. His translator barely functioned. Uniform, honored by your hands. Death with honor, acceptable. You're not dying, Kayla said. She ripped a thermal patch from her belt and slapped it over the worst of the burns. That's an order. The other Felixar had finished the remaining krill. They gathered around Vex, tails low, ears flat against their skulls. The reinforcements arrived. Human Marines flooded the corridor securing the breach point. But Kayla didn't move. She kept pressure on Vex's wound and refused to let him close his eyes. The medical bay smelled like antiseptic and burned fur. Kayla sat beside Vex's recovery pod while Dr. Nathan Pierce worked on the Felixar's chest with instruments designed for human physiology, not alien biology. His cellular structure is fighting the regeneration serum, Nathan said, sweat beading on his forehead. I'm essentially guessing here. Guess better, Kayla said. Vex's eyes fluttered open. His translator had been removed for surgery, but he managed to tap one claw against the pod's edge in a rhythm Kayla had learned meant acknowledgement. The door hissed open. Commander Stone entered with 3 Felixar trailing behind him. One carried something bundled in silver cloth. We've got a problem, Eric said. The krill didn't retreat. They're regrouping at the station's refinery sector. Intelligence suggests they're going for the fusion core. Kayla stood. If they breach that, the entire station vaporizes. Correct. We're evacuating non-essential personnel, but we need every combat-ready body defending the core. Eric glanced at the Felixar. They're refusing to fight. What? Why? The tallest Felixar, named Ryan, stepped forward. Without the translator active, she made a series of clicks and gestures toward Vex's pod. I had the linguistics AI analyze their communication, Eric said. Apparently, their cultural protocols are even more complex than we thought. When a warrior falls in defense of an ally, the entire unit enters something called a grief stand. They won't resume combat until their fallen comrade either recovers or receives final honors. Vex isn't dead, Kayla said. Doesn't matter. He's unconscious and might not wake up. According to their customs, that's enough to trigger the protocol. Eric crossed his arms. We've got 50 human Marines and 23 functional defense turrets between the krill and our reactor. The Felixar accounted for 40% of our combat effectiveness. Without them, our odds dropped to 32%. Kayla looked at Ryan, at the bundle she carried. What's that? Ryan unfolded the cloth. Inside lay a new uniform, identical to the one Vex had worn. the one that had saved Kayla's life before dissolving under krill acid. Understanding hit like a physical blow. You need me to dress them again. The AI believes that if you perform the ceremony while Vex is in this state, it might satisfy their protocols enough to allow them to fight. You'd be standing in for him symbolically. Eric's expression was grim. I know how it sounds. We're asking you to participate in an alien ritual we barely understand while our station is under siege. How much time until the cryo reached the core? 26 minutes. Kayla took the uniform from Ryan. The Felixar's ears perked up immediately. She chirped something rapid and urgent. Nathan looked up from his instruments. Lieutenant, I need you here. If Vex crashes, I'll need someone who knows Felixar physiology better than I do. You know I don't, Kayla said. You know them better than anyone else on this station. You're the only human they've allowed physical contact with. That has to mean something medically. The station trembled. Somewhere distant, explosions echoed through the superstructure. Kayla made her choice. She grabbed the bundle of uniforms from Ryan and headed for the door. Keep Vex alive. I'll be back in 20 minutes. Eric followed her into the corridor where the remaining Felixar had gathered. 17 warriors sat in perfect rows, their previous uniforms removed and stacked neatly beside them. They looked smaller without the combat gear, vulnerable. Kayla knelt before the first warrior. Her hands shook as she lifted the uniform. The Felixar's eyes met hers. In them, she saw grief, saw determination, saw something that transcended species and language. She dressed them one by one. Each warrior stood proud as she fastened the final seal. By the time she reached the 17th, her fingers moved with practiced efficiency. Ryan was last. As Kayla secured the chest plate, the Felixar placed one paw over Kayla's hand. The translator on Ryan's collar activated. You honor our fallen. You honor our standing. We fight as one now, human and Felixar. No separation. No distinction. Then let's go save our home, Kayla said. The Felixar moved as a single entity toward the armory. Kayla grabbed a fresh rifle and followed. The cryo were about to face a force they couldn't possibly understand. Not just human resilience or Felixar ferocity, but something far more dangerous. Alliance forged in ceremony, sealed in blood, unbreakable by any force in the galaxy. The refinery sector was a maze of pipes and catwalks, suspended over processing vats that glowed with residual heat. Kayla led the Felixar through the access tunnel while Eric coordinated the human marines from tactical. Krill have breached the outer containment. Eric's voice crackled. They're 3 corridors from the fusion core. You've got 12 minutes before they can physically access the reactor chamber. Kayla checked her rifle's charge. Full. She'd need every shot. The Felixar spread out without orders, taking positions along the catwalks with tactical precision that would make any human special forces unit jealous. Ryan stayed close to Kayla, her amber eyes scanning the shadows. The first cryol emerged from ventilation shaft 7, then shaft 12, then 23. They'd infiltrated the entire sector. Contact! Kayla fired at the nearest cluster. Her plasma bolts caught 2 Krell center mass, dropping them into the vats below. The superheated liquid consumed them instantly. The Felixar attacked from above. They used the pipes like highways, their clawed feet finding purchase where humans would slip and fall. 3 warriors dropped onto a squad of Krill soldiers, claws tearing through neural clusters before the insects could react. But more kept coming. The ventilation system vomited krill in endless waves. They're using the air circulation to bypass our defenses, Kayla said into her comm. Eric, can you seal the vents? Negative. Sealing them would cut life support to 40% of the station. We'd suffocate our own people. A krill warrior swung at Kayla from her blind spot. Rin intercepted it midair, her momentum carrying both of them off the catwalk. They tumbled through space, claws and mandibles locked together. Ryan twisted at the last second and landed on top. Her claws found the cryol's throat. It stopped moving. 8 minutes, Eric announced. Kayla's mind raced. The cryo weren't trying to win through combat superiority. They were using numbers to overwhelm defenses through pure attrition. Every second spent fighting was a second closer to reactor breach. She had an idea. A terrible one. All units fall back to the reactor chamber entrance, she ordered. We're changing tactics. The Marines and Felixar retreated in coordinated sections, laying down suppressing fire as they moved. The Krell pursued, emboldened by what they perceived as weakness. Kayla reached the reactor chamber first. The core sat behind triple reinforced shielding, pulsing with barely contained energy. The entrance was a single choke point, barely wide enough for two humans to stand side by side. "They'll funnel through here," she said. "We hold this position. Nothing gets past." A young Marine named Connor Hayes looked at the approaching Krill horde and swallowed hard. "There's gotta be 200 of them." "Then we kill 200, Kayla said. The Felixar took positions on either side of the entrance, using the walls themselves as anchor points. Their claws sank into the metal like it was soft clay. The Krill charge hit like a tsunami. They crashed against the choke point with mindless aggression, mandibles snapping, claws reaching. Kayla fired until her rifle overheated, dropped it, drew her sidearm. Fired until that overheated too. A Krill broke through and lunged for her face. Ryan appeared from nowhere and intercepted it, both of them rolling across the floor in a tangle of fur and chitin. Connor went down with a Krill's claw through his shoulder. He kept firing with his offhand until two Felixar dragged him back from the line. 4 minutes. Eric's voice sounded distant through the chaos. Kayla's arms burned, her vision blurred from exhaustion. The cryo kept coming, kept dying, kept coming. Then something changed. The cryo stopped advancing. They milled at the edge of the killing zone, mandibles clicking in what might have been communication. "Why are they stopping?" Connor gasped through his pain. Kayla's tactical display showed the answer. A massive heat signature approaching from the station's exterior. Something far larger than a battle-class warrior. "Eric, what am I looking at?" Silence. Then, quietly, Krill Siegebreaker. 12 tons of organic armor and plasma generation capability. It's cutting through the hull to reach you directly. The wall to Kayla's left began to glow red. Metal bubbled and ran like water. A claw the size of her torso punched through, followed by a second. The hole widened. The Siegebreaker pulled itself into the corridor. It had to crouch to fit, its carapace scraping the ceiling. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed across its body in waves of sickly green. Its eyes, clustered in groups of 8, focused on the reactor chamber entrance. On Kayla, the creature's plasma sac swelled. Enough destructive power to vaporize everything in a 50-foot radius. Ryan stepped in front of Kayla. Then another Felixar. Then all 17 positioned themselves between the human defenders and certain death. The translator on Ryan's collar crackled. "You dressed us with honor. We die with honor. This is the way." "No," Kayla said. But her voice was lost in the Siegebreaker's roar as it prepared to fire. The medical bay door exploded outward. Vex emerged through the smoke, his chest wrapped in emergency bandages that leaked pink fluid. His eyes burned with something beyond pain, beyond reason. He moved faster than Kayla had ever seen a living creature move. The Siegebreaker's plasma sacs reached critical mass. Green light built in its throat. Death in liquid form. Vex hit the creature at full sprint. His claws extended to their maximum length, and he drove them both upward into the soft tissue beneath the Siegebreaker's jaw. The plasma discharge misfired, spraying across the ceiling instead of the Felixar line. Metal melted and dripped like rain. The Siegebreaker thrashed, trying to dislodge Vex. Its massive claws raked across his back, tearing through bandages and fur. Blood sprayed across the walls. Vex didn't let go. He climbed higher, using the creature's own armor plates as handholds. His claws found the neural cluster at the base of the skull. He drove them in deep. The Siegebreaker's legs buckled. "Now!" Kayla screamed. "Hit it now!" Every weapon fired simultaneously. Plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, and 17 Felixar warriors converging from all angles. They climbed the Siegebreaker like a mountain, their claws finding every gap in its armor. The creature collapsed. Its weight shook the entire sector. Vex stood atop its corpse, chest heaving, blood dripping from a dozen wounds. His translator was gone, destroyed in the fight, but his eyes found Kayla's across the chaos. The remaining Krill forces broke. Without the siegebreaker, their assault lost cohesion. They retreated into the ventilation system, scrambling over each other in their panic. All units pursue, Eric's voice commanded. Don't let them regroup. The Marines advanced, firing into the fleeing krill. The Felixar followed, moving with lethal efficiency despite their injuries. Kayla ran to Vex. He swayed as she approached, his legs barely supporting his weight. "You stupid, brave idiot," she said. "Nathan said you'd be unconscious for hours." Vex collapsed against her. She caught him, staggering under his weight. Up close, she could see the extent of his injuries. The siegebreaker's claws had laid his back open to the bone. The acid burns on his chest had reopened and were bleeding freely. Dr. Pierce appeared with a medical team. "Get him on the stretcher. Move!" They loaded Vex onto the anti-grav platform. His eyes started to close. "Stay awake," Kayla ordered. "That's not a request." One amber eye cracked open. His paw reached for her hand. Found it. The gesture transcended the need for translation. The medical team rushed him away. Kayla stood alone in the corridor, surrounded by krill corpses and the smell of burned metal. Ryan approached, limping from a gash across her thigh. She touched Kayla's arm gently. "Another Felixar activated their translator for her. Vex heard your voice through the medical base systems," the translation said. "Heard you defending us. Heard you dress the warriors. His body refused to stay down while you stood in danger. He almost died," Kayla said. "He almost lived with dishonor instead. This way is better." Kayla wanted to argue, wanted to explain that survival mattered more than honor. But she looked at the 17 Felixar standing bloodied and proud in their uniforms and realized she'd be lying. They'd saved the reactor, saved the station, not through superior firepower or tactical advantage, but through a bond that shouldn't exist between species separated by 1,000,000 years of evolution. Eric's voice came through the comm, stronger now, confident. "Station-wide update. Krill forces are in full retreat. Their command ship just broke orbit. We're reading their fleet jumping to FTL. They're running." Cheers erupted across the command channel. Marines embraced. Officers shook hands. The Felixar remained silent. They gathered their wounded and moved toward the medical bay with quiet dignity. Kayla followed them. She found Vex in surgery again, Nathan working frantically to close the new wounds layered over the old ones. "His healing factor is remarkable," Nathan said without looking up. "Shouldn't be possible, but his cells are regenerating at 3 times the normal rate. It's like his body decided dying wasn't acceptable." "Will he make it?" Kayla asked. "If he wants to badly enough, I think he could survive anything." Kayla pulled up a chair and sat. She'd wait, for as long as it took, because that's what you did for family. And somewhere between the ceremony of dressing warriors and watching them risk everything for human lives, that's what the Felixar had become. Family. 3 days later, Kayla stood in the station's observation deck watching repair crews patch the hull breaches. The krill had left scars that would take months to fully heal. Behind her, the door opened. She turned to find Vex walking without assistance. His wounds had closed into silver scars that traced patterns across his chest and back. He wore a new uniform, but it hung loose and unfastened. "You're supposed to be resting," Kayla said. Vex's new translator chirped. "Rest is for the unchanged. I am different now." He approached the viewport and stared at the stars beyond. His tail moved in slow, thoughtful patterns. "Different how?" Kayla asked. "Before, I fought for contracts, for payment, for the honor of my clan." Vex touched his chest where the human Felixar Alliance symbol sat. "Now I understand what humans call purpose beyond self." The door opened again. Commander Stone entered with official documentation on a data tablet. "Lieutenant Brooks, the Council has made a decision regarding the Felixar contract." Kayla tensed. The Felixar had been hired as mercenaries for a 6-month defensive agreement. That contract had technically expired 2 days ago. "They're extending your payment by 300%, Eric continued, "and offering permanent security positions with full citizenship status for any Felixar who wants to stay." Vex's ears perked forward. "Citizenship? You'd be station residents, full rights and protections under Human Alliance law." Your people would have a home here if they want it. Ryan entered with the other 16 warriors. They must have been listening from the corridor. They formed a line behind Vex, waiting for his decision. We accept, Vex said immediately. But we have one condition. Eric frowned. What condition? Lieutenant Brooks must perform the dressing ceremony before every deployment, every mission, every combat operation. Vex turned to face Kayla directly. She is our honor keeper now, our bridge between what we were and what we become. That's not practical, Eric said. Kayla has command duties, combat rotations. She can't be everywhere at once. Then we fight only when she is present to honor us first, Ryan said through her translator. This is not negotiable. The room fell silent. Kayla looked at the 17 Felixar standing proud in their loose uniforms. Saw the scars they'd earned defending people they'd barely known. Saw the trust in their eyes. I accept, she said, on one condition of my own. Name it, Vex said. You teach me your language, your customs beyond the ceremony. If I'm going to be your honor keeper, I should understand what that actually means. Vex's tail swished rapidly, a sign of pleasure. This is acceptable. Teaching begins tomorrow. Eric shook his head but smiled. The council isn't going to like this arrangement. The council didn't fight beside them, Kayla said. I did. We did. That means something. A junior officer appeared in the doorway, breathless. Commander Stone, we're receiving a transmission. It's the Kral Home Fleet. They want to negotiate. Everyone turned. The Kral never negotiated. They conquered or retreated. Nothing in between. Put it through, Eric said. The view screen activated. A Krill commander appeared. Its mandibles arranged in what the translation software identified as a gesture of respect. Humans of Station Carthage 7, the Krill said. We acknowledge defeat. We acknowledge strength. We wish to discuss terms. Terms, Eric said carefully. You possess something we did not anticipate. Alliance with the Felixar clans. We have fought the Felixar for generations. Across 12 systems, never have we seen them fight with such coordination. How it could have slipped outside of our perimeter is. How it could have slipped outside of our perimeter is. How it could have slipped outside of our perimeter is. The Krill's eyes clustered, focused. You changed them, made them more dangerous than we calculated possible. Vex stepped forward to the view screen. The humans did not change us. They reminded us what we forgot, that honor without cause is empty. That strength without alliance is brittle. The Krill commander's antennae twitched. We propose non-aggression. Your station. Your space. We will not violate these boundaries again. In exchange for? Eric asked. Knowledge. How did you bind the Felixar to your cause, when mercenary contracts should have sent them fleeing after the first siege breaker appeared? Kayla stepped beside Vex. We treated them like equals. Like family. We learned their customs and honored their traditions even when we didn't fully understand them. Simple, the Krill said. Simple, Kayla agreed. But most species never bother to try. The transmission ended. The Krail commander's image faded, leaving only stars. Eric let out a breath he'd been holding. Did we just achieve peace through dress code enforcement? Through respect, Vex corrected. The uniform is symbol. Lieutenant Brooks is reality. She stood for us. We stand for her. This is the way forward. Kayla looked at her reflection in the viewport. Saw herself standing beside 17 alien warriors who'd become something more. Saw the future of what humanity could build when it chose understanding over dominance. Tomorrow we start training, she said. Real training, combined human Felixar tactical doctrine. If other species are watching, let's show them what actual alliance looks like. The Felixar's ears all stood erect simultaneously. Their tails rose high. Vex touched his unfastened uniform. Then tonight, you dress us one final time as mercenaries, he said. Tomorrow, you dress us as citizens, as family. Kayla smiled. I can do that. The ceremony hall had been hastily prepared. Repair crews cleared debris and installed proper lighting. Someone found fabric in station storage and hung it as banners. The result was rough but honest. Kayla stood at the center while the 17 Felixar formed a circle around her. Behind them, every off-duty crew member who could fit packed the room. Commander Stone stood near the entrance with the station council. Dr. Pierce held a medical scanner, still worried about Vex's recovery despite 3 days of miraculous healing. The Felixar had removed their uniforms and placed them in individual stacks. They sat perfectly still, waiting. Kayla picked up the first uniform. It belonged to Tix, the smallest warrior who'd driven her claws into a battle-class krill to save the evacuation pods. The fabric felt different now, heavier with meaning. She knelt and held the uniform open. Tix stepped forward and allowed Kayla to guide her arms through the sleeves. When the chest plates sealed, Tix stood taller. Her eyes met Kayla's with profound gratitude. One by one, Kayla dressed them. Each warrior received the same care, the same attention. No rushing, no shortcuts. By the time she reached Vex, her fingers ached, but her hands remained steady. Vex was last by his own choice. He approached slowly, favoring his left side where the deepest scars remained. Kayla opened his uniform, and he stepped into it like he was stepping into a new life. She fastened the final seal over his heart. Vex placed his paw over hers. You honor us as individuals, as warriors, as people. This is why we stay. I'm just doing what felt right, Kayla said. Exactly. Vex's translator captured the warmth in his voice. Most species do what feels efficient, what feels profitable. Humans do what feels right even when it makes no tactical sense. This is your strength. This is why galaxies will remember your name. The crowd erupted in applause. Not the polite acknowledgement of ceremony, but genuine celebration. Marines whistled. Engineers stamped their feet. The noise filled the hall like thunder. Ryan stepped forward with something wrapped in cloth. She presented it to Kayla with both paws extended. What's this? Kayla asked. Open it, Vex said. Kayla unfolded the cloth. Inside lay a uniform in human proportions, black fabric with the same liquid texture and rigid plating. The Alliance symbol gleamed on the chest, but beneath it was something new, a second symbol she'd never seen before. Felixar script, Vex explained. It translates roughly to Honor Keeper, Bridgewalker, the one who stands between worlds and makes both stronger. You made this for me? Kayla's voice caught. We made it together. All of us. Each warrior contributed one piece. Tix wove the base fabric. Rin forged the chest plate. I inscribed the symbols. Vex gestured to the uniform. You dressed us with human hands. Now we dress you with Felixar craft. The circle completes. Kayla looked at Commander Stone. He nodded once, granting permission. She removed her standard duty jacket and handed it to the nearest Marine. The Felixar gathered around her. 17 sets of claws worked with surprising gentleness, guiding her arms through sleeves, adjusting the fit, sealing the clasps. When they finished, Kayla looked down at herself. The uniform fit perfectly, moved with her like a second skin. She felt different wearing it, connected to something larger than herself. How do I look? She asked. Like family, Beck said simply. Dr. Pierce stepped forward with his scanner and ran it over the uniform. His eyebrows rose. This is remarkable. The fabric has integrated medical monitoring, temperature regulation, and what appears to be kinetic dispersion plating. This is military tech decades beyond our current development. It is Felixar craft, Ryan said. Given to one worthy of protection. Given to one who protects us in return. Commander Stone cleared his throat. If everyone's done being emotional, we have actual work to do. The station isn't going to repair itself, and we've got 3 new species requesting diplomatic meetings after word spread about the Crow withdrawal. 3 species? Kayla asked. Apparently defending a station against overwhelming odds while maintaining cultural sensitivity makes good press. Everyone wants to know more about human Felixar cooperation. Eric smiled slightly. The Council wants you to lead the diplomatic efforts. Me? I'm a combat officer, not a diplomat. You're the person who turned mercenaries into citizens through respect and ceremony. That makes you exactly what we need. Eric handed her a datapad. First meeting is in 2 hours. The Zenthar Collective wants to discuss potential alliance. Kayla looked at Vex. I don't suppose Felixar customs include diplomatic protocol? We have many protocols. I will teach you. Vex's tail swished. But first, we test your new uniform properly. Test it how? Combat training. You wear Felixar craft. You should learn Felixar technique. Vex's eyes gleamed with challenge. Unless the Honor Keeper fears a warrior's education? Kayla grinned. Lead the way. The Felixar moved as one toward the training facilities. The crowd parted to let them pass. Kayla walked among them. No longer just human, no longer just Felixar, but something new. Something the galaxy hadn't seen before. Behind her, she heard a young Marine whisper to his companion. Did we just watch humanity make first contact by learning to dress cats? No, the other replied. We watched humanity make family by caring enough to learn. There's a difference. Kayla smiled and kept walking. The future was uncertain. More species would come. More threats would emerge. But she walked it, surrounded by 17 warriors who taught her that strength came in many forms. Sometimes it roared with claws extended. Sometimes it knelt with patient hands and honored traditions it barely understood. Both were necessary. Both were human. Both